Hi, my name is Janai Chen. I am currently studying to be an educator at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Um, this is my new background. I've just moved into my apartment. I'm really happy about that. That's also kind of one of the things that I'm going to talk a little bit about today. Three things that I want to talk about that are like values of mine, things that are important to me is number one, mental health. Number two, empathy. And number three, a commitment to growth. So starting with mental health, I'm gonna go back to when I was younger, where I've been. So growing up was really, really complex for me. I went through a lot of experiences that I feel forced me to mature very quickly, but I also feel stunted me as well because of that rush to maturity. My mom passed when I was 6, and so I lived with my grandmother and my aunts for most of my life. And so with that, mental health has always been very apparent. Seeing what it feels like, what it looks like for other people, what it can sound like, how it can make you move, how it makes you eat. Those are things that I've always been attentive of because I truly do care about others. Like that's at my core, my desire for my life is to help other people. But in order to help other people, I also know that I need to help myself. So going back to mental health, from an academic standpoint, mental health has looked broadly different. At some point, academics were helping my mental health. I think that now it's grown a bit to change. College is hard. High school was really hard, but when I was in elementary school, I loved academics, and it kind of kept me sane because it gave me something to challenge my brain, and it still does. Definitely still challenges my brain, but it was more so challenging me by bringing balance to my life. I had a lot going on at home. Again, with that cloud of grief came all the feelings that come from grief: anger, resentment, depression, things like that. And so it impacted me, but it also impacted those around me and impacted the people who raised me. It impacted how they raised me. And so there was a period of time where I wasn't comfortable at home, but I was comfortable in schools, which is probably the biggest reason why I should choose to become a teacher. I have always loved school, the school setting, being able to be around people that are my age and be in this room. We are all learning the same thing, trying to help each other understand what it is we're learning. Being able to help my peers understand, having my peers explain things to me and help me understand has always made me happy. And that's an environment that I want to be around for a long time, for a huge period of my life. I would like to be in a setting where we are working together, where collaboration is important, where learning is important, because that matters to me. Learning is always going to be important to me. It's always been important to me. And then I know that academics also do not help everyone. I watched people turn away from school. I watched people fight in the classroom, with the idea of learning. Quick pause. When I say fighting with learning, I mean fighting with learning in a schooling setting, like the way that we learn in school. Not necessarily to say that students fight education, because they do learn in other ways, but some people would fight with the setup. Some people would fight with the way that we were being taught math or something like that. As an example, academics with their teachers and stuff like that. And I think that I never once thought about it from a point of either person being the problem. The teacher is doing their job. The student is doing their job as well by questioning what's in front of them, questioning what's happening in the classroom, questioning what we're talking about, And I think that that's always been really, really important to me, is being critical of school. I got the opportunity to be critical of my school when I was in ninth grade and I was in 10th grade, we got to look into what impacted the world around us, what impacted our school environment, why things were the way they were. And so I would like to be that person that facilitates those conversations for those younger than me. I think that not everyone gets the opportunity to simply challenge and ask questions. And right now it's a privilege. And so I would like others to have that privilege, but I would also like it to not be a privilege anymore. More so be the standard, more so be the purpose. Because I believe that is what the purpose of school is to question and be critical of everything that is happening within that system. Empathy was my second point that I want to talk about, so I'll transfer into that now. I think that empathy is a hard one for me to really talk about. I feel like I was born with that one. I've never not been understanding of other people. I think it would be pretty weird if I was critical or hard on people considering the life that I've lived. I think that it would be a bit silly for me to be non-empathetic, because I would want someone to be empathetic towards me considering the things that I've seen, the things that I've witnessed, things that are normal for me in my day-to-day life. I know they're also normal for other people, so it feels most natural to be empathetic, to understand where you are coming from, even if I myself haven't lived it, but just simply feeling what you are feeling. Because at some point in my life I have, and I would want someone to understand how I feel. And so that's something that is really, really important to me to maintain in my teaching and carry into that, is a sense of empathy. I'm going to push home to my students that you should extend love to one another, and that can look differently. But just don't be closed off, I think, is something that has been a standard for me, a reminder to myself, and something that I want to remind my students of. It's not close yourself up. The world, I think, wants you to be really, really hard. I think that's becoming more and more the standard. It looks different, of course, for every generation, but I think being hard and being stern and being cold to other people has been really, really popular in our current day and age. And so being soft in a world that wants you to be hard is difficult, but I think very important, and something I want to foster for my students. The last thing that I want to talk about is a commitment to growth. I think growing is natural, but also something that you have to realize you need to do, and something you have to take steps towards. And I realized that later on in life. So where I am right now and where I'm going is more so where this value comes into play. Where I am right now, I feel like that commitment to growth sometimes was thrust upon me, regardless if I wanted it to or not. And that came through a loss of friendships, regular high school drama, realizing that something doesn't suit you anymore, realizing that these people do not suit you anymore. And I have always been comfortable with that, a desire to change the way that my life is going. Something I told my friends in high school, and I'd been friends with them for years. I told them I didn't want to go to college with them. And then, of course, they were offended by that. But it wasn't coming from a place of ill intent. It wasn't coming from a place of meaning harm. It was more so coming from a place of, I want my adult life to look differently than it does now. Because high school made me realize that I wasn't happy with the way that my life was. My friendships did not make me the happiest. I was friends with the people I wanted to be friends with because I wanted to be friends with them, yes. But I was not happy with the way that I was making decisions. I think that people don't truly understand how much other people can influence the way that you behave. Your environment actually shapes what kind of person that you are, and so you may find yourself doing things you normally would not do. And so if I know that I did that as a high school student, and even younger than that, then I'll for sure be able to understand that for my students. But also, I want them to be able to realize on their own and advocate for themselves in that way, of being able to decide this is not the life that I want to live. Because I've done that myself, and I know that it's hard, especially now. I'm in college, and life is a lot different. Socializing is harder. It's not the same as when I was a kid. I have to go out and meet people. That's not something that I had to do when I was little. Everyone's in the room with me, you know. But this is like, I now have the whole world at my fingertips, and so I have to work with that and understand that, and realize that it will not come to me. I will have to go out and get it. That growth that I am now looking for I will not be in a consistent space where I'll be able to actually sit down and observe what I do not like about my life. Sometimes it'll grow and grow and grow, and then I'll be like, oh, this isn't the way that I want my life to continue. This isn't the way that I want my day to keep going. And now, especially with the way that this past spring has went for me, I realized that commitment to growth is so important. I do not ever need to stop being critical or observant of myself. Maybe I was making a wrong decision, and I didn't realize it, and that's okay. So being able to give myself grace and moving on and moving forward and seeing and figuring out what I do not want to do anymore, which is, again, tying back to the apartment. I now have one. I realize that I do not want to be on campus anymore. I want to practice being in my own space, fostering an environment that makes me feel safest. And so now I will be building my home to be my safe space. And I think that will give me an idea for what I want to do with my classroom. Using the space that I'm creating for myself now will help me to figure out what I want my classroom to feel like by deciding what makes me feel safe, right? Being able to ask myself the specific questions. What details would I like to have in my home that make me the happiest? So that way I can go into the classroom and ask my students, what details about this classroom will make you happier? What would you like to see whenever you come into your space? What will make you feel like this is your space? So fostering that for myself now will help me to foster it for my students in the future. So to conclude, where I'm going and how those three values tie into that. With mental health, I will continue to be an observer. I will continue to be someone who takes note and watches and is patient in understanding what traits may be stemming from what, understanding what you may be feeling, why you may be feeling it. Just gathering data, gathering information so that I know my students and I know myself as well. Being able to see when something is becoming a pattern, when something is becoming a habit. Just consistently and always observing and being observant of myself is something I'm going to be taking with me in my personal life and in my professional life. And secondly, with empathy, I'm going to continue to learn more about that. Learn more about what being empathetic truly means. Does it mean giving myself grace? Does it mean being hard on myself when I need to be hard on myself? Does it mean talking to myself in the way that a friend would talk to me? What does empathy look like for me? What does empathy feel like for me? How can I be empathetic towards myself? So that's something that I'm going to grow more for sure. Something that I definitely think would be really important for me to have before I go into a classroom where I'm going to have about 20 or so people sitting in front of me who I will have to be empathetic towards, who will need to be empathetic towards each other. And so being able to solidify what empathy looks like and feels like for myself will help me to help other people in being empathetic and figuring out what that looks like for them as well. And lastly, that commitment to growth. I think that I've spoke a bit on it in mental health and empathy because those are things that I want to continue to grow. Right now, my biggest thing I want to grow is how I advocate for myself. And that is also including against myself. How do I advocate for myself? And when it's a mental turmoil thing, when it's an internal conflict. How do I advocate for myself when it's an internal turmoil? How do I advocate for myself when the person that's being hard on me is me? And I know that maybe I need to hold my own hand a bit better. The reason why I'm so committed to working on it right now is because I want my students to come into a space and work with someone who's already comfortable with advocating for themselves. Come into a space where there's someone who sees self-advocacy as normal and will not shame them for advocating for themselves in whatever way that would look like. I'm committing to these things now so I can help myself fulfill my desires, to help other people, to to help people build themselves up in the way that they want to be, to help them to be the better people that they want to be, to help them to change the society they want to change, because I want to change society. So yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.